Hey, you guys, this is Sky Juice coming to you live and direct, and we have
Tony B.
in the
We
house.
are here.
What is going on tonight? We have a very cool conversation, questions, and we have guests. So, tonight's show is about polyamory. And as you all know, and most of you should have seen, because I know millions have seen it, the show with Jada Smith, Red Table Talk, and her daughter and her mom. They were talking about polyamory, and I saw the whole thing. It was only 30 minutes, right? The only thing that I thought is, of course, it wasn't complete. There wasn't a lot of things weren't answered, and they were definitely spinning it as a lifestyle for millennials or the younger generation.
Mhm.
And that's where I thought it lost its appeal to me, because I know amorous people throughout all and generations.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk to two people who are polyamorous and who are living this way, and just all the questions you can think of, definitely pop them in. So good night, everyone, and how is everyone doing?
Now, are you going to give them a backdrop, a little,
Of what polyamory is?
yeah,
I
definition?
I can tell, I can speak on my behalf. I mean, on what I
You want
know.
to wait till some populates a little bit till we get some people on here, or
We
you
got
got?
like we're populating.
Oh,
So
okay.
um so just so you guys know, and this will be discussed as well, polyamory is not polygamy. Okay, and I think that needs to be clear, because
Yeah,
I
what's
think
the
a lot
difference?
of people, when they hear polyamory, they hear polygamy. But I'm going to bring the guest in because I want them to do most of the talking, because they are very knowledgeable.
Mhm.
And first, I'm going to start off with Evita La Vita Loca Sawyers. Here she is.
Hi. Hello.
Hey,
Welcome,
how you
welcome.
doing?
She's coming to us from San Diego, California, and thank you. She is, I'm going to put her in the realm of expert, because that's how I feel, because I've been following her and she's educating me in non-monogamy. So, and we have Midnight. I'm not sure if his screen is ready. I'm going to see if this looks right. If not, I'm going to pull him back out. And then, yeah, no. I'm going to pull you back out, Midnight. You need to re-enter. In fact, I'm going to kick you out and re-enter and see if you can get your connection better. I hope he heard that. Um anyway, welcome, Evita. How is everything?
Everything is good, thank you. I'm actually just got finished doing a workshop for passion classes on jealousy, which is like one of the number one things that people want to know about
Wow,
when they talk about
jealousy.
non-monogamy is either do you not get jealous, or I'm too jealous for this. And so I did a workshop for passion classes on like navigating jealousy and non-monogamy. It went really well. So I'm riding that high.
Mhm. So tell us about okay, so tell me what's your definition? How do you define, okay, people like polyamory, the first thing, the first thing people go in their mind is like, I can't do that. I'm not interested. That's where people go. What is polyamory to you? Because I know it's like a spectrum of different things. And how have you navigated it? That's huge.
Um, uh, so, uh, so first of all, a lot of people use polyamory and non-monogamy interchangeably. And polyamory is a specific form of non-monogamy. So all polyamory is non-monogamy, but not all non-monogamy is polyamory, if that makes sense. So there's a wide variety of
Mhm.
non-monogamy. There's swinging, there's kind of open relationships, there's polyamory. And so I actually identify as non-monogamous, meaning that I interact in a variety of forms of non-monogamy. I swing on occasion. I have casual relationships. I have polyamorous relationships. Polyamory specifically is the focus on multiple romantic partnerships. Most people that are polyamorous or identify as polyamory are either interested in or are actively involved in multiple romantic partnerships. Some of those relationships may be love relationships, and usually when people are talking about polyamory, they're talking about people having multiple love relationships. And some people define it as just having multiple romantic partnerships. Whereas with swinging, the focus is on recreational sex. So you're not developing any kind of relationship with the people. You're largely just getting together to, have fun sex with each other. And then open relationships are generally people that they can date. They might be able to hook up with an ex if they came into town, or, meet somebody at a bar and go home with them. But they're not usually going to be seeing anyone with any real consistent basis or trying to develop a partnership with the people that they're interacting in. So I actually identify as just non-monogamous. So no matter what relationship I'm in, none of my partners can have an expectation that I'm going to be monogamous to them, whether that's me sleeping with somebody or me just having a casual date or me actually having partnerships. I'm never going to be exclusive to anybody. But polyamory is a specific form of non-monogamy that focuses on having multiple romantic partnerships.
Okay. So I have like 100 million questions, but I'm gonna let Tony speak because I don't want to.
So I'm going to ask this question.
Okay.
So a lot of times when people hear about when it comes to poly and stuff like that, think of maybe Mormons and stuff because they try to associate that, or Muslims and stuff like that. So how would you be able to kind of individualize, because it's not all the same in each individual? So how would you explain that if somebody wanted to know, okay, what's the difference what you're doing and somebody that may be Muslim, or that put it more in a religious aspect? You know what I mean?
Right. So those are also forms of polyamory, even if those people might not identify as polyamorous, but those are forms of polyamory because they are multiple romantic relationships. But I think where people get tripped up is there is polygamy, which is multiple marriages. There's polygyny,
Okay.
which is largely what we see in those communities. So polygyny, which is multiple wives. And then you have polyandry, which is multiple husbands.
Okay.
And then polyamory is just multiple romantic relationships. So you can be polyamorous and have life partners, but they're not spouses, so they're not marriages. Whereas polygamy, polygyny, and all polyandry are spousal relationships. So polygamy is multiple marriages. Like I said, polygyny is multiple wives, and polyandry is multiple husbands.
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, when they're saying, I'm interested in polyamory, they might be interested in polygyny, or they might be interested in polyandry, or they might be interested in polygamy. And those are forms of polyamory because they're multiple romantic relationships, but they're of a very specific kind.
Okay.
So I want to jump in on that. I'm going to piggyback off of that conversation. So I guess it's not even, I don't even have a problem with any of it. Oh, yay. Dominic is jumped in. So I'm going to pull you in just a second, but let me get to Evita. Okay. So I think the viewpoint for the large majority of society sees polygyny. They see one man and 99 million wives, right? I know I'm being exaggerated. Okay. But that's what they see. And it becomes I guess male-centered. The guy gets all the, vagina. And yeah. And then, women so how is this something that's attractive to a woman? Because and the reason why I say I put it in the topic, is it a viable relationship style, is because there's so much talk that there are going to be women out here that will not have a partner. They just, because of numbers, we're not looking at all of the other factors. I'm just talking on pure numbers. There's going to be women that will not have a partner. They won't find a mate. They may have children, but they won't. There's just going to be women who are not going to have a partner. So is this a viable option to share? I don't know if it's sharing, but if to share a partner, and how do you see that? And then I'm going to bring Midnight in.
Well, firstly, it's interesting that that's the thought process of it, simply because if you look into the history and the roots of polyamory, it was very feminist centered. So it was very much about female empowerment and liberation. I think because of patriarchy, we assume that this has the most benefit for men. But I think also looking at it as it's a man's thing. It number one, I think it erases queer identities. So like me, for instance, I'm bisexual, so I have relationships with men and women. So I'm not just seeking to interact with men. I think also that I believe that it's a viable relationship for a person of any gender that wants to interact with people, if that's the way you want to interact. My vision of non-monogamy and polyamory is not, these men with all of these wives and all of these women, that they're with. My version of polyamory and the ones that my friends practice is very broad. It's having multiple male partners. I've had multiple male partners throughout my journey. My partners having multiple partners of a variety of genders. And a variety of kinds of relationships. And so I think a lot of what we see publicly presented with regards to non-monogamy and polyamory has to do with things like patriarchy, and then also monogamy. So I think they want to kind of present the version of polyamory that seems most appealing. And because we live in a patriarchal society, and we live in a society that very much shames women for promiscuity, for having empowered sex lives, for wanting to have multiple partners. There's so much shame put on women for that, and femme-identified folks, that when we're looking at the public face of what non-monogamy looks like, it often caters to the patriarchal male gaze. But that's not a basis in like what actually goes on in the community. The community is very vast. It's very broad. There are lots of varieties of ways to interact with it. There are women with multiple husbands. Like I said, people in queer partnerships, non-binary individuals interacting with other non-binary individuals. And so it's this really, really, really vast, broad community. But we only see this really limited perception of it. And that limited perception that we see is in line with these sort of societal constructs that are most prominent and most dominant, which is patriarchy, cis heteronormativity, and things of that nature, and monogamy. So even like that package, like the triad with the couple and the person joining the couple, is I feel like it is a way to like package non-monogamy in a way that is palatable to a monogamous society, because it still centers on the couple doing someone or being with someone together, and that appeals to monogamy in a monogamy-centered society. So they're like, okay, well, if we're gonna accept non-monogamy, we can accept it in this way because the couple's still staying together and they're with the same person, and so that's appealing to a monogamous society. But in the actual community, there are all kinds of relationship configurations and dynamics, and it's very vast and broad, and it's not as narrow and limited.
Got it. That was awesome. I'm gonna bring Midnight in. Welcome. Oh, we got the whole screen here. That's dope. Yeah. Hey, so you made it, huh?
Yeah, I was having difficulties with the laptop, so I just switched to the phone and the stand. So I'm good now.
Great. Well, welcome. So Midnight's story is so interesting. We tried to do this earlier, like a few weeks ago, but we were having technical difficulties. So I figured let's bring in, and I really wanted Evita and both of you have a male and female perspective, because like Evita just said, there's a lot of like male dominated information, and I wanted balance. So Midnight is a part of a quad, and I want you to tell us what a quad is and how that works.
So I'm still in a quad, but it's not the same. The dynamic changed. What happened was I have a girlfriend.
First, tell us what a quad is.
I don't like everybody give these labels. Like she was saying, is very vast, and some definitions of quad for some people might be different than other. My girlfriend has a husband, and I have a wife, and we all live together.
Okay, four people.
Yes, 4 people, but we don't date each other. My wife dates separately. Her husband dated separately.
Okay.
It's just me and her together. So some people see a quad as everybody interacting with each other and stuff like that. But it's like everybody has their own definition. That's why I don't really like going off definitions, because people, when you try to fit in a mold and try to make it work that way, it usually ends in disaster. Like when a man tries to have two women and he may force one of his partners to be bisexual when she's really not.
Oh, wow.
Because he wants a triad. And usually when people ask me stuff like that, I ask this question. If your wife tells you, if you tell your wife, hey, I'm okay with you sleeping with other people, but only women, because you have an OPP policy. But what if she flips around on you and say, okay, I will only sleep with women. However, you can only sleep with men. How would you feel about that situation?
Right.
Because she has an OPP too. She has one pussy policy. You have a one penis policy. Would you be able to get down with that? And most men meet that with disgust. So, but when I say that, and I kind of trap them into it, but it's a catches them off guard, and you can see their true reaction without them thinking about it. So, my girlfriend and husband no longer live here. Matter of fact, he's moved back to Texas.
Oh, wow.
They're no longer together.
And
Because in his heart of hearts, that's what he wanted. He wanted OPP. He hated that his wife seen other guys. He would try to sabotage that relationship.
even though they moved in with you all together?
He had an ulterior motive, and it didn't work out to his advantage. Let me tell you something that's dangerous about having, if you're not ready for this lifestyle, if you're not ready for this love style, when you bring another person into your relationship, though people try not to, you will be compared. When you have two men that she's dating side by side, or he has two women side by side, if you're not on top of things that you should do as yourself, not mimicking that other person, if you're not taking care of your relationship as you should be, and you have not been doing it, but they've been going along with it, it is magnified when somebody else is doing exactly what they should be doing.
Wow.
I'm not saying that he has to be me, and I definitely don't try to be him. I am the man I am, and you either love me for who I am or you don't. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a primary partner, and your secondary partner is he's up here and you're just laying around not doing anything, then it gets magnified, and over a time that person that's in the middle gets frustrated, and he or she will.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to that. Yeah, I think what non-monogamy does that people aren't often aware of is so there's a lot of room in monogamy to hide like issues in your relationship, because you're literally the only person that you're romantically interacting with. But when you open up and you become non-monogamous, you engage in other relationships and you get things from those other relationships, and you're like, oh, this is something that really fulfills me, or I really need this. And what it does is it sort of it creates this an atmosphere where you begin to sort of take a critical lens to all of the relationships that you're in. And oftentimes you find that the relationship that you might be in when you started it doesn't really meet your needs. As you become exposed to, other kinds of people to be in relationship with. And some relationships survive that and they make those adjustments, but some of them don't. And so even that myth that people have of like, oh, this is going to save my relationship. There are instances where that does occur, but actually what non-monogamy can do is shine a blindingly bright light on all of the issues that you have in your existing relationship. And so if you're not prepared for that to occur, it can be very jarring, and it can really end in you realizing that relationship is no longer viable for you. So I always say, like, just because you could navigate not monogamy, if you're with someone and you can navigate monogamy successfully for a period of time, does not mean that you're going to be able to navigate non-monogamy together successfully. And oftentimes it does highlight that the relationships that you're in don't really meet your needs and they have to end.
I find that most people can't even navigate monogamy properly because I just find this guy said the other day that he's really sad because he's getting a divorce, and I was like, man, congratulations. Because I can't stand people staying involved in shit that is just so like toxic and not working. You know what I'm saying? Like people stay in these relationships and then they're so proud that they've been married for 20 years.
It's so funny that
crash, huh?
It's so funny that you're saying that because someone I know talked to an older person and he was like, you couldn't make it to 10 years, huh? You couldn't make it to 10. I just know if you made it to 10 years, you'd have been in it for the long haul. And I was like, do he means that you want to stay in an abusive relationship for another year so you can be stuck in that relationship for the rest of your life? No. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, people, and the thing about monogamy, and I'm really more pro polyamory only because I do feel, and people say that they don't agree with this, but I do feel that in polyamory, just some of the situations that you were just talking about tonight is you have to communicate. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You have to come clear with who you are, what you want, where your downfalls are. I mean, there's so much that it's really just like polyamory allows you to like work on yourself. Like it makes you have to work on yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, then it doesn't work for you. But to be in a monogamous relationship and to be okay with like, I don't want to say mediocrity, but just like, well, she allows me to do this. I can get away with this. You get what I'm saying?
But that's the way we were taught though. Mm-hmm. Even if you listen to old school songs, blues,
absolutely not.
Old school R&B, if you listen to it, it was, you can cheat, you can do this, but if I got a piece of a man, as long as it's better than having no man at all. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Some people are in poly relationships, they just don't know it.
That's exactly
there's
right.
a lot of people in a poly. Well, I wouldn't call it poly because poly is being open. They're just in non-ethical, non-monogamous relationships. Right. So
I think that there is opportunity to do that in monogamous relationships. I just think that we don't practice monogamy consciously, and I think that is the difference between polyamory and non-monogamy and actual monogamy. When we arrive to the human experience, we're told that we're monogamous and there's just no other narrative that's given. And so I do believe that there are very much people that are inherently monogamous. There's always this like, debate in the community about like, is, monogamy natural? And I'm like, well, it's natural for some. It's not natural for others, same like anything else. But what we don't practice as a society is conscious monogamy. So I'm aware of all of the relationship choices and I'm making a conscious choice to choose monogamy. And so because we don't practice monogamy in a conscious way, there are often a lot of unconscious and unwritten like rules, expectations, and modes of practicing it that aren't really super healthy. So I know, and actually this is something that I've been discussing in my communities of people being like, I am a monogamous person. I know that I'm monogamous. I know that I want to live monogamously, but I'm so attracted to the way polyamorous people communicate, the way they're open, the way they share, like, the way they want to love their partners freely and all of those things like that. And so they're in this place of going like, I really don't want to be polyamorous because I have no desire to have more than one partner. I don't want my partners to have more than one partner. But when I interact with monogamy, there's all of these really funky things there based on just how we've been practicing it in this unconscious way, for centuries. And that doesn't really work for me either. So I don't necessarily think that the opportunities for growth that polyamory creates can't be experienced in monogamy. Mm-hmm. I just think that people don't engage in monogamy in a way that is conscious.
Absolutely. We have a question.
I agree with that.
Dominique says, so I'm new to actually exploring poly. What would be the best piece of advice you can give to us newbies?
First off, don't try to follow what someone else is doing. They said we should be in a triad. That that works for them. I want to be in that. They're in a quad. That works for them. We should try that. Have a conversation with your partner and find out what your limits are and have a true discussion. Because if you go out there just trying to do it, it will fail. You need to be open and honest about all your needs, all your wants, and your expectations. And you need to be able to openly communicate them without judgment.
Mhm.
Um,
And
oh, I'm sorry. Were you
go
not done?
ahead,
I
go
don't want to
ahead,
cut you
go
off.
ahead.
Number one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to new people is to build your non-monogamous community. You're really
Mhm.
going to need to see non-monogamy at work in the lives of others, so you can figure out kind of what you want, what you don't want. You need to see examples of it working, so that you can kind of believe that it can work for you, because all of the relationship imagery that we receive is monogamous. And so if you don't have non-monogamous friends, mentors, peers, people that you can talk to, it can be very isolating. And so I often tell people, like, build your non-monogamous community, and not just looking for people to date, but looking for people that you can build friendships. Some of the most rewarding and enriching relationships that I've had since I've become polyamorous have actually been the friends that I've made, and not necessarily the partners that I've had, because, those come and go. But the friendships have last. I also would say, and this is actually something I'm just now learning, like 10 years in, okay? Um, Not just because you can date whomever you want doesn't mean you should date whomever you want. So these relationships have a lot of moving pieces. They have a lot of considerations. And so I feel like in some ways in polyamory, it is even more crucial to take your time, to get to know people, to make wise choices about your partner picks. Make sure that you're picking people that you're in alignment with, like, how they want to operate in non-monogamy, so you're not having a lot of those conflicts that people have, because you have a different idea for how you want it to work than the people that you're interacting with. And so just because I feel like people get into non-monogamy, and so, like, the world opens up for them, of like, oh, I can interact with all these people that I want to interact with, and so they just chase every rabbit. And now at 10 years, I'm tired. And and my heart is worn out, and I'm just like, okay, like, maybe I need to, like, be a little bit more circumspect about the choices that I'm making. So one of the pieces of advice I would definitely give new people is, just because this world has opened up to you, you still need to be mindful about making wise choices and who you engage with, because that will
Right.
literally be the difference between you enjoying your experience or having a really rough time.
I 100% agree. And she took the words right out of my mouth. I was getting ready to say that. But yeah, building friendships should absolutely come first. Like, not just, I'm going to be friends with anybody, because quality friendships. People who are
Absolutely.
going to tell you the truth, communicate with you, not always agree. No yes man, yes woman. And just reach out. So it's a lot of people in a lot of different areas and with different knowledge everywhere. So quality friends, and pursue that first before you try to pursue a relationship, because you're gonna get lumps. You're gonna need the people to talk to. You're gonna find out things. And another thing I'm gonna add that she didn't talk about is, well, like she mentioned about dating, chasing a rabbit down the hole, just different relationships. Do not come in this just for sex, because you would get your feelings hurt. If you're just,
What if that's what someone
they
is?
have, you can be a swanger. They're just sex. I tried swinging. It wasn't for me, because I couldn't build a relationship with their people. They just want to have sex and go about their business. There's no hanging out. There's no relationships. There's no dating. That's not what they in it for. So
Mhm.
you have a space for just sex. You have a space for both, actually. I'm gonna have just sex with them, but this is who I'm in a relationship with. It's some people that mix both together, and that's fine. But if you're coming to just get your rocks off, it's only going to work for a little while. And even though community is big, it's also small, and people talk to each other,
Mm.
and
So
they will,
do they poly shame?
I wouldn't say poly
Um,
shame, but if you're toxic, they would know that you're toxic.
Got it.
I think that a lot of times people enter into non-monogamy thinking that it's all about just having a variety of people to have sex with. And I think also people enter with, like, varying drives, So, like me, I have a super high sex drive, so I like having a variety of people to have sex with. However, I take that to the proper spaces or the proper channels. And the non-monogamous community, a lot of people, I think, coming in, they really do think that it is about sex, or sex is the crux of why people are engaging in these multiple relationships, is because they're trying to amass, a plethora of people to have sex with. But there are non-monogamous and polyamorous relationships where there's no sex involved at all. There are asexual polyamorous people. There are demisexual polyamorous people and gray sexual polyamorous people who don't engage in sexual relationships at all, but they have multiple romantic relationships. So if you're coming in and you have a either a strong connection to wanting a lot of sexual partnerships, or a strong desire to have largely sexual interactions, there's nothing wrong with that. This may not be the space for that, or like you said, you can be a swinger. And also you need to be being very clear about that, so that way people can enthusiastically consent to wanting to have that with you, because there's nothing necessarily wrong with having that. I think a lot of times what happens is that's people's motivations, but they're not leading with that's what their motivations are. And so they're creating this sort of pseudo expectation that they want a relationship, that they want a date, that they want partnership, when really all they want is sex. And there's nothing wrong with all that being what you want is sex, but where it becomes a problem is when you're not communicating that to the people that you're interacting with, so they can, decide whether or not that works for them or not.
It sounds like it's evolved over the years. So with that being said, has any one of you guys done any research as far as like how long has it been around? Hundreds, thousands of years? Where did the first dynamic of that thought process of poly come in? Did either you two guys ever did that research to find out that?
Some marginal research. I will say that multiple relationships have been around for millennia, okay. And especially now as we're doing efforts to like decolonize ourselves, our ancestors and indigenous people were engaging in lots of the plural relationships and plural marriages and all of those things, and a lot of that stuff got lost with colonization and white supremacy, basically. And so a lot of that got demonized. I do know that in, I believe, the mid 1800s and the late 1800s, there were some like free love communities. There was one called the, I think I forget the name of the community. So I did a workshop once and I put it in there, but they were like a free love society. And so they were they had like a compound, and, there were people living there and they were engaging in open relationship. And actually that one was very interesting because, they had Black and white people at a time when the country was heavily segregated. And so there have been communities, but I think the actual polyamory, the community as we know it now, I think it really got its origins in maybe like the 70s, the 60s and the 70s.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where the start of actual polyamory, but plural relationships have been around for eons.
Let me ask you a question.
I think plural relationships.
Okay.
I think plural relationships were the original relationships, like as we know. Monogamy is actually newer than polyamory. Polyamory, we were engaging in multiple relationships first, and then monogamy became a thing. So that's what I know about plural. What were you about to say, Midnight?
Tony, let me ask you, you grew up in a Christian background as a kid?
Several different religious backgrounds.
Right. But you remember going to church and hearing the sermons about, and even though they use this to colonize, but if you look back in the Bible, which I'm not Christian, but I was forced to go to church so many years.
Neither am I, yeah.
We know what a concubine is, right? So in the patriarchal system that they created, a husband was allowed to have wives and concubines, especially if that wife couldn't give him a son. So there was all about multiple relationships, but in that case, it was only benefiting the man.
Okay.
Women, even if you go back to the Scarlet Letter, she wore an A for adultery. What did the man wear?
Nothing.
Because he can have sex and do anything that he wanted to do. It was the woman that was cast out because they were only seen as property. He was a slightly above cattle.
Wow.
So as long as it benefited man, it was allowed. But when it's a woman who wants to have multiple men or even sleep with anyone else besides a husband, she was shunned for it. Cast out, even killed.
I have a question.
Wow.
I have two questions.
Deep.
One is, let me see, which direction am I going with this? Okay. One is hierarchy. And I don't know if folks out here know what hierarchy is in polyamory, but can you guys, both of you, speak to how you feel about what hierarchy is and if it worked, if you're, because you're married.
I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. And
me
and my wife has struggled about this because and she still struggles.
Tell us tell us what it is first, and then your opinion.
When you have the wife at one level, and then it goes down levels. So you have your wife, then you have a girlfriend number one, girlfriend number two, or how many partners you're gonna have, and they're sitting at the top of the food chain. So they pretty much make most of the decisions, and everybody below them has to just go along with it or not be in a relationship. I don't believe in that because I don't believe treating a person less than. If I'm with you, and I'm all in. And my wife struggled with that, and she still struggles a little bit with that because she was like, well, I'm the wife. And I was like, well, I treat my girlfriends like they're my wife also. You know what I mean? We have our time, they have their time, and when I treat them, I don't treat them like they're less than anything else.
So she believes in a hierarchy and you don't.
Right. But in the system that she grew up in the system that she grows up in, that's how it is.
How does that work though?
We talk.
Oh, okay.
We talk and we get past it. We talk, we have conversations. She listens to what I have to say. I understand her feelings. And this is the thing about communicating. If you push off another person's feelings and disregard them, like, oh, we poly, you can't act like that. And that happens a lot. Gaslighting will just ruin everything.
I like Evia's over there, like feeling everything.
If you don't validate their feelings or how they're feeling, then you're not doing it right. You're casting that person aside, and what you're doing is effectively pushing that person away.
Yeah, but I'm married to you, and you can't care if you go with some other girlfriend. That's okay, but yo.
Yeah, what? I struggled with I didn't want a hierarchy, but I struggled with that unseating of being primary, which is a lot of what people struggle with getting into non-monogamy. So they're like, I'm okay with my partner having other partners as long as I'm first, I'm most important. I personally don't necessarily judge people's desire to have a hierarchy or not. I don't participate in hierarchy. I didn't have a hierarchy in my marriage. I don't sign up for relationships to where there's going to be a hierarchy. So usually when I'm interacting with people and dating people, I ask them very specifically, like, do you have a hierarchy in place? Do you have an expectation that I'm going to come second to somebody? Because it's not something that works for me. But there are couples that works for, and there are people that don't mind being secondary and that doesn't bother them. I think what happens is people don't communicate that that's what they have going on in their relationship. And like, hey, we have a hierarchy and this is what that's going to mean for your relationship with me. So that someone can kind of, like I said, enthusiastically consent to that. And then I think there's a difference between, and they talk about this sometimes called prescriptive hierarchy and descriptive hierarchy. A prescriptive hierarchy is prescribed. So like we are designating that we are in a hierarchy. Whereas a descriptive hierarchy is like, so in the case of like my marriage, I'm married, I have a husband. We don't live together now because we're separating, but we did. And when we lived together, like I got the bulk of his time. I got the bulk of his, finances and those things that nature, simply by way of the fact that we lived together and I was his wife, but it wasn't something that he was intentionally like putting in place. because I was his wife. And his other partners had equal ability to, they didn't always get equal time or equal financial contribution or all of those things. But what they did get in equality was equal care, equal consideration, equal ability to craft the relationship that they wanted to have with him, to, get their needs met, to develop the relationship how they wanted to develop it. And there was no ranking of me being first and my needs or wants being first and foremost, and then everybody else had to kind of fall in where they fell in. And so for me, like hierarchy is just not something that I choose to participate in. But it's one of those things that I'm like, well, people are out there, they're going to do it if that's what makes them feel safe for their relationship. Where I, talk about it is make sure you are telling people that is the kind of relationship that you have. And what that means for if they interact with you, so they can make an informed choice about getting into a relationship with you. Because oftentimes people will get into a relationship with someone and they'll be like, oh, okay, we can have this full relationship with this person and it's great. And then they start bumping up against this hierarchy that they didn't know was there because it wasn't communicated to them before they entered into the relationship.
Okay, 2 questions that are basically the same popped up. Basically, and you probably have gotten this 90 million times. So why be married? Why don't you, if you want multiple partners, just be single? Why get married at all?
Can I answer that question?
Why can't I be married?
Because
why can't I be married?
Okay.
Why can't I be married?
It has
Who
value
says
to me.
like marriage is the end all be all? Why can't I be married?
Well, because
I enjoy having my wife and my kids and stuff like that. Why can't I be married? I
mean,
enjoy being married. That's
Also,
the question they need to ask themselves.
Folks are thinking what marriage is. So this is where they're living in this. This is what a marriage is.
People equate marriage and exclusivity. So they're like, marriage means exclusivity. But marriage and exclusivity are 2 completely separate concepts. And people get married for a variety of reasons. People get married for love. People get married for security. People get married for companionship. People get married for business acumen. I mean, people get married for all kinds of things. But we equate marriage and exclusivity. And if that's what marriage means to you, that's fine. But that's not what it means for everyone. I got married. And granted, I got married monogamously, but I've known lots of people that got married as non-monogamy. And really the number one reason why they did it is because they wanted to. So I just don't understand, like, when people say that, why get married? And I'm like, because
Michelle says, because your wife isn't happy about not being top priority. That's definitely going to midnight.
Okay. My wife is very happy. I'm just going to let you know that right now. Sometimes because the way she grew up. But this is how I put it to her. Just when you said, well, but I'm your wife and I'm this and that. Let me ask you a question, though. She has a boyfriend. And would she like if her boyfriend had a wife or her to be treated as a second person? Because I wouldn't like it. If you treat my wife like she was second or less than, then we might have a problem. You understand what I'm saying? So when you in another relationship, if you don't want to be treated as second, why would you want your husband to treat someone like they're second?
I also think the question about because his wife isn't happy. Number one, all relationships have parts of it that are a challenge. Just because she finds that aspect of their relationship challenge does not mean she's not happy. It just means that aspect of the relationship is challenging. But like all romantic relationships have some form of challenge. And so we pick and choose the challenges that we are willing to deal with. And that is a challenge that is worth it for her, for being in the kind of relationship that she has with Midnight and having him as a husband and, all of those things. So like, that's always a strange thing for me when I'm like, so you're in romantic relationships and monogamy and they got 0 challenges. Nothing about the relationship is challenging. All relationships have challenges. So we pick the challenges that are worth it for us. And this is a challenge that is worth it for us. It's no different.
Tony been trying to talk for a while.
I got a question for both of you guys. Now, somebody just mentioned something about the marriage, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off that because it was kind of what I wanted to ask both you guys anyway. So a lot of people already kind of understand that marriage is really a business, and it's really about business and a partnership more than the love. we seen a video the other day with Dr. Umar talking about that. People might feel like they feel about Dr. Umar, but he made a good point. And he said, when has anybody ever went to divorce court and said, I want half my love back? They don't want the love. They just want the money. So it is a business, it's a finance. So I say that to say this. I've heard of poly situations when everybody is all in the same house and everybody's contributing to the cause. This person might be the person that takes care of the house and the kids, and all these other revenue streams coming in to help build up the tribe. So as far as just the question to both of you guys in that aspect, have you heard of that? Is that something that you guys are open to? Is something like that? What do you feel about everybody coming together and contributing as a tribe like that?
I have heard about that. It's a specific form of non-monogamy that people are looking for. I'm very much a whatever floats your boat kind of person. I personally have no desire to engage in that kind of community just because I consider myself pretty structurally monogamous. I really don't have much of a desire to live with more than one person. Not that I don't have a desire to have multiple committed long-term partnerships. But I just don't really want to live in a large group of people. And so that just doesn't particularly work for me. There's also people that are solo polyamorous that have zero desire to have enmeshed finances, live with anyone, intertwine their lives in a way like they consider themselves their primary partner. And so they don't, like my husband's longest standing partner is like this. She has set up her life so that she does not mesh finances with any of her partners. She will never live with a partner. And so it's one of those things that it's like, if that works for you and that's what you're looking for, then make sure you're aligning yourself with other people that are looking for that. Y'all go right off into the sunset and enjoy it. But there are also other people that are over here and they have a different way that they want to interact with it, and it's all valid.
Okay.
I would, I'm open to it.
You are. You were living like that for a minute, right?
I was living like that.
Okay.
And trust me, it has its challenges. It sounds really good. And yes, we did save a lot of money.
From the outside looking in?
Huh?
From the outside looking in, it looks good.
From the outside looking in. Yeah. But I'm going to go ahead and say it as we as a people, it's hard to live with us. Have you ever had a roommate? It's hard because we like our space.
Anybody, actually.
We like our space, but culturally, we like our space. You see a bunch of Latinos living together with no problem, house full, and they take over the whole neighborhood because of the way they do things. So my ex-girlfriend was Cuban, and I was like, well, why do y'all do that? She's like, because if we have 10 adults in this one house and everybody's paying the bill, we pay that house off, and then we move to the next house and the next house. I was like, wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds good.
It sounds good, but my heart feels so.
I had a roommate, and after 6
him.
months, I was like, man, you need to find a place to stay. So it sounds good, and I would love it if everyone got along, but our differences are not there yet.
Yeah. And I speak on that.
You don't know a person until you live with them for at least 6 months. I mean, they can be anything on the outside looking in. When they're in the house, you be like, hey, listen, every time you come in here, you throw your clothes off at the door. I'm tired of picking up. It's like little stuff that would continuously bug you. Yeah. So it sounds easy. What my vision is, what I would like to do is build a whole community, though. Not just live in the same house. It's like, if you go in this cul-de-sac, everybody in the poly, not necessarily.
I'd be open to something like that. Yeah, like where we
not,
all
we're not messing with each other, but this whole neighborhood belongs to us.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
you pull up in this neighborhood, like, hey, what you doing over there? If Vita don't know you, I ain't never seen that car before. Let me call. Hey, you got a strange car pulling up at your house. You know what I'm saying? Then
I have a question
about something. Actually, I want to address something that popped up in the comments really quickly, because this is a common misconception. And so even though I don't identify as this, I want to make sure that I clear this up. A lot of people feel that solo poly people aren't committed to anyone. And it's a very erroneous myth. My partner's partner, my husband's partner, is solo polyamorous, and they've been together coming up on 4 years in August. That does not sound like not having a commitment. So solo poly people definitely make commitments to their partnerships. They just don't have a desire to enmesh their lives with anyone in these integrated ways that we typically see in monogamy and in romantic relationships. They do that with friend groups sometimes. They may do that with like queer platonic partnerships. But they don't do that with what they consider romantic partners generally. I do know some solo poly people that do live with partners, but even as they live with their partners, there's no enmeshment of finances. Like, you know, they're very stringent about that. But solo poly does not mean I don't want to be committed to anyone. There are solo polyamorous people that have relationships that have spanned longer than some monogamous relationships. And so that is a really, really erroneous myth about solo poly, that they're just people that just kind of want to be single and don't want to be committed to people. That is not true at all.
Word. So one of the thoughts I always have is specifically, Evita, you mentioned earlier that, you know, when you're living this way, you tend to like go through dating and being involved with somebody for a period of time, and then maybe there's a breakup and what have you. Like, what does longevity look like? You know, like, are folks building, like, I mean, midnight you're married, what have you, but I mean,
yeah, let me address.
Did you and the girlfriend just break up?
No,
me?
Midnight. Did you break up?
Oh no, me and my girlfriend are still together. We're stronger than ever.
Okay. But her husband is not with her.
No, he left.
Okay. Well, it doesn't matter. What I'm just saying to both of you is, what is longevity? Because it definitely seems like there's a lot of moving parts all the time. And how are folks like, I mean, how are folks able to create multiple long-term relationships?
Okay, so firstly, that is the assumption that the goal of a relationship is to be together forever, which comes from monogamy. And so monogamy, the success in monogamy looks like being together forever until one of you dies. Like, that is like success in monogamy. When you get into non-monogamy, we change our metrics for what a successful relationship looks like, because of the fact that it is difficult at times to create relationships with people where you have 3 or 4 partners and you have the same 3 or 4 partners for 20 years. You know, people move, people's needs change, people decide to go back to monogamy. A lot of different things happen that cause these relationships to end. And so we change our metrics in non-monogamy from success being the relationship lasting forever to a variety of different things depending on the individuals. So like, I feel like a lot of polyamorous and non-monogamous people, the goal really isn't longevity so much as it is having healthy relationships for as long as a relationship is able to be conducted in a healthy way, whether that's 6 months, whether that's 2 years, whether that's 6 years, or whether a lifetime. We're a lot more comfortable with relationships ending, right, and not continuing, because we change the metric for success of a relationship from being long-term or being forever. Because I mean, honestly, if you really think about it, every relationship that you are in is going to end either by something happening, the relationship actually ending, or somebody dying. And so I think in non-monogamy, we're a lot more comfortable with that than they are in monogamy, because the metric for success in monogamy, one of the number one metrics for success, I mean, honestly, I feel like the number one metric for success really in monogamy is longevity. So that's why you'll get that example of, you know, people being together for 50 years and people will be like, oh, relationship goals, but they're miserable.
No, exactly.
You know,
I said
right,
that
it's
at
like
the
these people are
beginning. I said that at the
miserable.
beginning.
Right.
I've always felt that way. And I've always been so disgusted by people who just, oh, we've been married for 100 years. And, you know, and you're so damn miserable for 99 of those years. Like, I can't stand the basis of longevity being like, oh, I did marriage. I've been married all this time and I've been single most of my life and I've been happier than you. So,
I like longevity, actually.
Okay.
I do too. I love longevity. So
my thing is to build a solid relationship, and as Evita pointed out earlier, not try to date everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I know what my limit is. Some people can have 5 partners. I can't handle 5. The way I date and be in a relationship, I can't handle that many partners. Because then I'm spread way too thin. I have a wife, I have 2 girlfriends, that's it. And one of my girlfriends is long distance, so I have to travel back and forth to her. I have long-term goals, but I take each day as a day at a time. I have a goal for each day.
Mm.
And let me refer to this movie. You ever seen Adam Sandler 50 First Dates?
Mm-hmm.
I
I
try
love
to
that
make my
movie.
loves fall in love with me every single day.
Is it where everything repeats every single day?
Yeah, she loses her memory, and he has to make her fall in love each day. And so
Wow.
that's how I approach my relationships.
Oh, you're romantic, huh?
I am.
Now, Lavita, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier, I think before we went live, you said you were teaching some classes on jealousy, and that woof, because regardless if you're in a monogamous or a poly, that's an issue I think with everyone, and it was just interesting if you can give a little bit of just a little input on how that goes and how you kind of present that class for people to kind of deal with jealousy. Because, you know, a lot of people feel like jealousy is just like a natural feeling that everybody's going to have. Now, whether you act on the jealousy, that's a different story, right? But I don't know. I'm just trying to get a grip on it.
So, some people. What I always say is everybody has an emotional index. We all have an emotion. So there's a wide swath of human emotions. We all have an emotional index. And so on our emotional index, we have all the emotions that we as an individual experience.
Okay.
And so some people experience, some emotions to a high degree. Some people experience some emotions to a low degree. Some people don't experience them at all. Shame and embarrassment are two emotions that I don't experience very high. So, but jealousy is one that I do actually experience very highly. It's high on my emotional index. And
Wow.
some people, it's not. So some people, they don't experience it to a very high degree. So what I tell people about jealousy is, number one, it is a normal human emotion. No different than confusion, sadness, anger, fear. It's a normal human emotion. We as human beings make it out to be this like huge emotion that requires all of this consideration, but it is a normal human emotion. So when I find myself experiencing jealousy, and I still do, and I've been doing this for 9 years, 10 years almost actually.
And people will stereotype that you didn't know.
Oh my gosh! Like people are just like, oh well, there must be you must never experience jealousy, and I'm like, no. I actually experience jealousy significantly. I've just learned how to effectively navigate it, and it's actually a remarkable tool for self-discovery. So I've learned so much about myself, and all of the ways that I need healing, and all of the ways that relationships work and don't work for me in the experience of feeling the emotion of jealousy. And it was because I was willing to sit with the emotion and receive its message. So I read a book once by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk. And he talks about our feelings. And he said our feelings are like babies. They're little children. And they're like messages from our baby selves that are trying to alert us to something that is going on either in our inner experience or our outer experience or both. And so when I meet with jealousy, and I call it meet with, because I sit down with it when it's coming. First of all, I don't judge myself for having it. I treat it like a regular human emotion, and then I sit with it and I ask it. Hey, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to let me know what's going on? What am I experiencing in me? What am I feeling insecure about? Is there something that my partner is doing that is not working for me, and it's resulting in me not getting a need met in my relationship that I need to address with my partner? Is there something else entirely different that's going on? Maybe I didn't get enough sleep that night, and my emotions are just a little raw because I'm tired. And so I sit with it and I kind of ask it like what its message is for me. And then once I get that information, if I deem it necessary, I discuss it with my partners. Sometimes I just need them to validate me and to just assure me and to need to be heard and to kind of get that vent spade out. Sometimes I need them to actually respond to it. I need to go, hey, we haven't gone on a date in a month, and in a month you've gone out with 3 different people, but you haven't made time for having a date with me. I need you. I'm feeling jealousy about that. Can we get a date on the books? And so I ask them to support me with it if I identify that I need some support from them. And then I change the narrative. So our feelings, what our feelings do is they get triggered and then they tell us a story, so there's a story going on in our mind based on this feeling. I'm feeling this because this is going on, this is going on, this is going on, that is going on. And it creates a narrative. So I just develop a counter narrative for my jealousy when it comes up. So it'll look like my partner's not doing anything wrong. We've agreed to be in this kind of relationship together. So I'm making a conscious choice to be doing this with this person. I'm likely doing the same thing with other people. So you know what I mean? So I can get jealous about them being on a date, but I literally was just on a date the other night with someone else. So I'm likely doing the same thing with other people. And then I also remind myself that my partners are not interacting with other people because it says anything about me. It's about them. So they're not doing it because they don't love me or they don't find me attractive anymore, or they're not they don't desire me, or there's something wrong with me as a partner, or, how I'm showing up to them. They're interacting with other people because they're seeking their own personal fulfillment, and it has nothing to do with me. And so when I depersonalize my partner's choices, and don't make them all about me, it helps to sort of mitigate the effects of jealousy on me. And so that's pretty much how I generally tend to respond to it.
Let me comment on that. I agree with everything she's just said. My jealousy level is not high though. My other emotions are.
Which are what? What are your what's
I am
anger?
Very protective.
Do you
some people
angry?
call it controlling or whatnot. I don't control who they date or if I don't like the person, I don't do that. But I will not tolerate disrespect to any of my partners. And I will get very upset very, very quickly. And I go to counseling for that. Because I'll put my hands on somebody. I'm not even gonna lie. If you disrespect one of my partners, my favorite saying is, man, I'll shoot you in your face. I almost cussed, but I ain't gonna do that. But that's how I was. And I was dead serious. Like, you do not disrespect her. Yeah. If you done with her,
sounds like this happened recently.
That just don't disrespect her. You can do whatever you need to do, navigate your feelings or whatever like that. Do not disrespect my wife. Do not disrespect my girlfriend. Do not disrespect even a close friend. Do not disrespect the people in my life, because I will put hands on you on any day. Because
on any day,
I want all the smoke.
Right? So we're gonna
I shouldn't be like that.
I have one juicy question to ask, unless Tony does. I have one juicy question because I know folks always want to know this. What? Tony?
Huh?
What were you about to say?
No. I said, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
This is my girlfriend. She asked me this morning. She was like, "How do y'all schedule sex?"
Oh wow!
I don't schedule
that's
sex.
What people
I just
are
have
thinking.
it.
That's what people are thinking.
I don't schedule it. It just happens.
Yeah, I don't schedule sex. It just happens. If I'm hanging out with someone that I'm sleeping with.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, how do y'all?
No, I mean there might be scheduled date time, so you might have scheduled date nights. I mean, that is a thing that does occur. And I think that question makes a little bit more sense in group situations. So people that are in triads, I know when we were in a triad, we didn't have scheduled sex, but we did have scheduled date nights. And part of what you were going to do on the date night is hopefully get your chance to have your like alone time sex with your partner, because that's important in triad relationships, quad relationships. So I think they run into that more. But I don't like specifically like schedule sex with any of my partners. Sex just happens when it happens, when I'm interacting with them. And so, yeah, so it's not like a consideration. Like I may have hey, say to maybe like my nesting partner or something, like, hey, we haven't done anything in a while. Can we, make sure that we do something on Tuesday or something like that. But there is no sex schedule. No.
Especially with kids running around and stuff like that. I work I work at night, sometimes I work during the day. We get it in whenever we can get it in.
Do your children, both of you have children, right? What do they know about your love style?
Everything.
Yeah,
I sat down, even though mine's a 7 and 11 that live in the house, I sat down and explained it the best I could, and they're cool with it. They love both my girlfriends. They love them. And so my daughter asked me, like, does that mean we have 3 moms?
Yeah, my kids interact with my partners. I told them when they were 8 and 5. So actually, we've now been non-monogamous longer than we've been monogamous. So I don't even know that they remember their parents being monogamous, because we've been non-monogamous for such a long time. So they interact with my partners. They go to their houses. They come over here. They know who they are. I think a lot of times the reason why people ask that question about kids is because we just automatically assume that if someone's in a romantic relationship with a person, they take on a parent role. to the kids. But that's actually not really the case. So my partners are allowed to have the kind of, interaction with my children that they want. And so they're just like any other like special person in my life, my friends, like it's just like, oh, this is mom's friend, this is mom's partner. My kids love my partner. They geek out on anime stuff all the time, and we go on outings. Matter of fact, we're going out of town this weekend, and my partner's going to be there. We're going to Joshua Tree with me and the kids. My husband interacts with my kids and his partners, and so it's really not that big of a deal. Like when people act like it's like, oh my God, how do you do it with the kids? I'm like, like any other thing.
It's not unhealthy.
Kids are not dumb. Kids are
Right.
far from dumb. They see
Not
what's
at all.
going on. They know. So being open and honest with them and having a relationship that you can be open and honest with your kids actually promotes open and honesty towards you when something is happening to them.
Right. I want my kids to know that they have options. So I'm not trying to raise non-monogamous kids. What I'm trying to raise is children that are aware of all the relationship options for themselves so that they can make informed choices about like how they want to interact. So if my kids wanted to be monogamous, that was fine. If they wanted to be non-monogamous, that was fine. But I don't want to lie to my kids. And that was actually one of the reasons why we shared with them, because I feel like as adults, we often insult children's intelligence a lot.
Absolutely.
And so I've had situations where people that I knew didn't tell their kids and their kids found out, and they felt really betrayed. And so I just have no desire to paint a picture to my children that I'm anything other than exactly who I actually am. And so part of that is being open about my non-monogamy, because honestly, there really is nothing to be ashamed of. So there's nothing wrong with it. So why would I not tell them?
I teach my children the same thing. I teach my children that there are different options of loving and different ways. I don't necessarily believe in one thing or the other. I think that they can definitely make their own choices, and I support them as long as they're in healthy relationships. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? So any final words? What, like, Evita, tell us where we can find you, because she's a super dope polyamorous educator and everyone needs to follow her. And Midnight, thank you for being a part of this. And I'm sorry your situation didn't, or maybe it did.
Oh, it's no need to be sorry. I'm happy.
Better, right?
She's happy. We all happy.
We're all
So
happy.
yeah, don't be sorry about that.
No, I mean,
life evolves. And
exactly.
people change and they grow apart, and sometimes you can handle it, sometimes you can't. So
yeah.
Her happiness is my main concern, and so
Absolutely.
I'm fine. We're fine.
Absolutely. Well, and Evita, tell us your Instagram. I think that's where most of your postings are, right?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at LavitaLoca34. I post mostly daily non-monogamy reminder. So it's called Today's Polyamory Reminder. I've been doing it for a little bit over a year now, and it's grown exponentially. And so I do a daily polyamory reminder, and I also do like series of different things, different topics. Like I just did a series on transitioning from monogamy to non-monogamy that people found super helpful. And then I post on there about like various classes and workshops that I'm teaching and where you can find them. I also do peer counseling or peer coaching. So if you're wanting to enter into a non-monogamous relationship, or you are in one and you're struggling, I do coaching. And so people reach out to me to kind of help them navigate through the various challenges that come up in non-monogamy. And then I also have a page on Facebook, Lavita Loca Sawyers. And so Lavita Loca 34 on Instagram, and Lavita Loca Sawyers on Facebook.
Very cool. Very cool.
I would like to thank both you guys, Midnight and Lavita, both you guys for taking your time out, sharing your story, talking to the people, just sharing part of your personal life with us. This is our first interview that we've done. We're trying to get our little platform off the ground. So I appreciate you and thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us your time and sharing your personal stories with us.
No, thank you for the opportunity. This was a great discussion. I super appreciate it. You both were so open, and I love the questions that you asked. So thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And everyone who's listening in, thank you for coming. And we will see you on Sunday. So talk to y'all later, and good night.
Peace and hair.